Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone to this discussion of the splitting of the Red Sea, of the Sea of Reeds, which happened in our history, which happened in time. And the truth is, it says that we're supposed to read the song of the Sea of Reeds every single day. And we do that every single day. And the reason for that, our sages tell us, is that there are certain things which stand in our way, which seem as an obstacle in our lives, and they're represented by the Sea of Reeds. It represents the ocean in front of us and the opposition in back of us. Does that sound familiar in any way? Uh-oh. Okay. Hi. Hello. Hello. Hi. Sorry about that. My friendly Wi-Fi personnel went into a private phone call there, so I apologize on that. Okay. So going back to the Sea of Reeds, the Sea of Reeds represents the opposition, or the obstacle rather, which is in front of us, while we are chased by another obstacle, which is in back of us. And in this case, it was the Israelites, right? The Jewish people leaving Egypt and having gone 7 days. On the seventh day, they reached the Sea of Reeds. And in that place, it's basically do or die. It's basically what happens now. They either go into the ocean, basically, with everything that's involved with that, or they look back, and who do they have in back of them? The Egyptians, and they have Pharaoh. Not only that, it says that the god of the Egyptians was following them, that they were, right, that there was the ministering angel of the Egyptians was coming directly. In other words, this was going to be like a big collide of two forces that are going to create something new. And so in that place, the Midrash tells us that there were 4 fractions that broke up into sort of figuring out within the bunch of hours that they were there, what are we going to do in this situation? What do we do as a nation? What do we do as individuals who are frightened? What do we do? How do we deal basically in this situation? And these 4 fractions were as follows. One of them said, let us jump into the ocean. In other words, just commit, mass suicide, right? This is something that happened throughout history, for example, in Masada, and it happened, in various times throughout the Roman, kind of oppression of Israel. Jews have done that, rather than facing the enemy. So that was the first fraction. The second fraction said, let us go and fight Egypt. Meaning, like, that's it. We're going in and we are fighting them, which also is pretty much a suicide kind of a mission, in many ways, because that's negating their whole protection of who they are and what their, special powers are in terms of truly believing. But yet they had a conviction, which again, back in history, so many Jewish people had that conviction, including the Maccabees, which great things happened to them, and many, many others that things really went well, and because of their heroism is that we're here. So that was the second fraction. The third fraction, or rather, this is the second fraction. If we go like in order, that was the third. The second one is the one that said, let's go back to Egypt. Okay, basically saying we're waving a white flag. Take us, just don't harm us. We'll go. Let's make this peaceful. No one has to be hurt. Let's do it that way. That was the second one. And again, the third one, and that was surrender. The third one, again, is going and fighting. And then the fourth one was a spiritual one. It was one that was immersed in prayer. They were praying. They were getting down on their knees. They were calling out to the big boss, like Lord, save me now, right? It was just mimamakim from the depth of their hearts. They were saying, now, please, I need you. And that was the fourth fraction. All four fractions were there at the same time. Now, okay, we're going to talk about bitachon right now, because God says to Moshe, all of you guys don't have it. All of you guys are missing the point. There's one point that's needed at this moment, and that is vaisau. Vaisau means march forward, valiantly, courageously, with bitachon. Walk through. Trust. That's what's needed. That was the column that Moshe has. God says to Moshe, because in which fraction do you think Moshe was in of the four? Right? He was in the praying one, right? He was there. Although he could probably fight. He's strong, we know that the great leaders were able to fight and to do what's needed, including Jacob. At the same time, Moshe's great strength is the emunah, the belief that he instilled in the people as being the source of their real strength. So he was involved in the fourth fraction, which is prayer. And God says to him, Ma titzak elai, what are you screaming to me? Daber b'nei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, vayisau, and let them march forward. And there's a bunch of very interesting midrashim that speak about what happened next and what really turned everything into a spectacular, above nature miracle and victory. And so according to one opinion, it was the tribe of Benjamin that jumped into the water. According to another opinion, it was the Nasi, it was the prince, the leader of Judah, of the tribe of Judah, Nachshon ben Aminadav, that went into the water. He, without even hearing the calling that Moshe received, Nachshon ben Aminadav went on his own as the leader of the tribe of Judah, which forever before and after is the tribe which are the leaders of the entire nation and really show the great heart of the people, right? And of having that belief. So Nachshon ben Aminadav, who represented the entire tribe, goes in and he goes all the way up to his nose. And he has that bitachon that God brought us so far, like he's proven that he's been in our lives, that he's done all this, and I've seen it over and over again. Is he going to let me down this time? No. And you're able to, get by that fear, that sympathetic, part of ourselves, the anxiety, the heightened whatever. And he was able to go from a place of deep belief, deep conviction of going through. So I'd like to further delve into these 4 fractions and specifically into this 5th fraction. So if any of you have any questions, comments, please feel free. So let's talk about the first fraction. So the first fraction is a fraction that said, let's jump into the ocean, which basically means giving up. And it's giving up on myself. It's like what we call there. Now, there's 2 parts of that, because the first part is jumping into the ocean, and the other one is surrender. So they're both giving up. The difference is that the first giving up is a giving up of saying, I'm never going to be able to affect any of the changes that I want to do in my life. So let me just bundle up in a fake reality that I'm going to create for myself. And that's what the water represents. It's a reality that I am imbuing myself in and deluding myself and thinking that now that I've, and we do this mentally, it's, basically to try to be able to live. And it's a way of a disassociation in many ways from our true selves, from the pain, from the trauma, from what we perceive as the lack of doing, of accomplishment, whatever. And it's now an illusion that's now built around it. And that's the first level of giving up. The second level of giving up is going into Egypt, basically saying, take us, I'm waving a white flag, and I'm just going to go back. And that represents living life and going through the motions, but not doing them with any inner happiness and value. And feeling good from the accomplishments and from the small things in life. It's basically saying, okay, I'm just going to have to live this way. And let me hunker down and basically live a life of slavery. That's what going back to Egypt means. It's living a life of slavery. And right, so many people do that and live their life that way for a career, for a pension, right? And I don't mean to, get down on anyone really at all. It's obviously a very noble thing to be able to do what is needed in order to have the bottom line to survive, basically. And that was this group's survival mechanism of the need to survive. So it's very much a survival mentality. Aaron, you're right. So that kind of goes hand in hand, because these 4 archetypes are archetypes that we all go through. And we'll speak about that like a little bit later. So that's the second level of going into Egypt and living a life of slavery. And that life of slavery is depleted from real happiness. In other words, it's not the fake happiness that's going to really satisfy, and the external things. It's the internal thing, which is basically missing from this component. That in this level of this fraction, they're basically in a survival state of mind, which, right, and it's a normal way to try to cope of just needing to survive, and happiness comes later, or value comes later. Now, seemingly that should be the approach. We're going to see it's actually really different. It's above to below approach. This is a below to above approach, a very much amygdala, fight or flight, limbic system, whereas the top down approach is the neocortex. It's the deliberation, it's the mindfulness, it's the what's needed to be done, and we'll get to that in a second. So the third one is to fight, and to fight means you're fighting for a cause. How many people do you know are fighting for some, if it's political cause or whatever cause, not saying that they're not important, and standing up. We know, like, the Jewish people standing up for rights is something that didn't happen in World War II, and that's incredibly important, to stand up for rights. But when like you fight for causes, like, and it's at the expense of one's, like, basically mental, stillness. In other words, they're constantly involved in, in things, in causes, and trying to, fight for the truth and whatever it is. And at the same time, it's like you're losing the point of, it's not always just a fight, it's also to enjoy and to be in the moment, and not just to be in this fight or flight kind of place. And so there are many people that they're not accepting the pseudo reality. They're not going to accept going through the motions. They're going to fight for authenticity, which is very normal, but yet it doesn't really accomplish the mission of really fully, being out of Egypt, in a sense. So the fourth group, the fourth fraction, is the fraction that was praying. And this fraction that was praying realized, or knew very deeply down, it's all God. And if there's any thing in this world that could help me, it's Hashem, it's God. And that's what we call emunah, that God, like, there's faith. And they place their faith in God. But here comes the fifth fraction. Fifth fraction says, it's not just emunah, it's bitachon. V'yaminu b'Hashem u'v'Moshe, that they truly believed. You could truly believe when you actually take the step. You can't believe and just say, I'm going to wait for God to do it for me, right? And it's sort of the opposite of this third fraction that was fighting, saying, we're going to do it, right? We're not, like, allowing any of the humility to allow God to do it. The fourth fraction is saying, God is doing it, we're praying for him, and we just, we're getting out of the way. Fifth fraction is, no. For the sea to split, for opposites to happen, one has to split their own sea. what's splitting that sea? It's the idea that God does everything, yet he also wants me to be an active participant. These are opposites. These are contradictions. That contradiction is the contradiction of what we call the essence, an essential being in the state of, in the state of the now, basically. That in every moment we have an opportunity that God is giving to us, yet we have the trust and we march forward in what seems like we're on our own. But we're marching forward knowing that we're supposed to march forward. And we can't wait to march forward until all the signs are there, because that would be almost like the fourth fraction, as holy as they are, devout, religious, whatever you want to say, it's still not godly, basically, because it's waiting for God to do the job. And God is waiting for our courage to be partners with him. That contradiction is the contradiction that splits the sea. And that's why at that moment, they were truly free out of Egypt. Up until then, even with the holy, endeavors that they were involved with, the important causes that they were involved with, at the same time, it's more than that. It's about splitting our sea, because everything else is outside of us. Everything else is our mind or our ego that's dictating that. It's not really us. Even a holy endeavor still has its own, what it believes mind is capable of attaining, what it is, its limitations. It still is the source and the seat of limitation. The source of above limitation is the heart. Right? And that's why the tribe of Judah, which represents the heart, the lion, the courageous one that jumps in. And according to another opinion, it was the tribe of Benjamin, who are wolves, right? That jumping in and going into an operation, going into like a Navy SEAL or like an amazing, God bless, the incredible soldiers and defense people in Israel, the amount that they put themselves on the line, jumping into unknown territories and doing unbelievable feats of courage is something that has brought about this land that we live over here in, the last 70 plus years, to an amazing place of security, of affluence, of spiritually and abundantly, of so many incredible feats. But it came through this courage, which very much came forth 1967, very much came forth 1973. And we see miracles that come as a reciprocation of that, right? And in West Point, they don't even study Israeli warfare because they say it's miracles. It is miraculous, but it's not just miraculous. It's the fact that we were active participants in that process. That courage And that faith, that determination of faith is what split the sea. So we've got the number 5, the 5th, but it's not really the number 5. It's really the Midrash says there's 4 fractions, but then there's something which is the truth. And it supersedes the mind because it's the source. It's what's needed. And that courage of going forward is what affected the splitting of the sea. So we've got these 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, which is interesting that these 2 tribes have what in their portion? The temple. And the temple specifically, all of Benjamin had the temple in its border, right? Benjamin and Judah's tribal borders are adjacent to each other. In fact, there's a little bit of an area that goes around from Judah into Benjamin, and it says that Benjamin's area had the temple there, but the actual mizbeach, the actual altar, was in the portion of Judah. And Benjamin's portion went around the altar, which the altar, it says, is the place that Adam was created from. And it's the place of where he's atoned for. So that almost humility and vulnerability of being that human, because we're not always courageous and we do fall and we have our obstacles constantly, they just come in different shapes and forms. But when we do find that place of Adam, basically that place of the altar, Judah, right? Or, Benjamin, and right, but the prevalent idea is that it was like Nachshon ben Aminadav that kind of like went first, and maybe the tribe of Benjamin went after them. But whatever the case is, it represents this very, very strong sense of courage that one needs to have to march forward. So I'd like to maybe take a moment over here. If you guys are ready, we're going to do a little bit of a breath meditation, trying to, because this is something of the heart, not just, and it's not the brain, essentially. Again, it's the calling of Hashem that basically comes to us, so that we can march forward in our particular oceans that are in front of us. So I'd like you to close your eyes and think about a particular obstacle which is in your way. Whatever it may be. Doesn't feel so comfortable, but let's begin. Let's begin by taking in breath from our mouth and breathing out. You know what? We're going to go through the nose, because the mouth breathing is the whole thing. So let's go through the nose and out through the mouth a little bit longer. Doing 30 seconds of this, breathing in through our nose, out through our mouth. Just a second each. Now, as you're breathing in, you should be feeling a circulation of the breath that comes in and loops down from your belly and out through your mouth, almost as a half a heart. Continue that breath. And can you imagine on the other side, there's another half of the heart. It could be behind glass. It could be within a vault, but it's there. Can you feel the two sides coming together? Breathing in and letting out. Try to breathe in and out. Next 30 seconds. We're now going to think about what is in our way, that obstacle. Just look at it as you're breathing and as you are holistically connecting to the other side of your heart. And seeing that obstacle slowly dissipate as you pulsate with your heart with a greater frequency of love, tranquility, bitachon, trust, beauty, valor. And you allow that feeling to split through any of the oceans that is there. Letting go of any residue that may be connected, being instilled with fresh, exuberant, youthful energy. We have now reached theta brainwaves, which supersedes all of the other brainwaves. And knowing that through breath and through visualization, belief in Hashem, we are able to transcend and go through all of our yamsufs, seas of reeds. If you can see yourself joyously getting to the other side, singing, or playing the tambourine. Know that it's there for you. And believe and know that you will get there one day. Okay, let us take 5 breaths in and out. Long breath. Going back. 5. As we get to 1, coming back, being fully present, and instilled the newfound awareness, self-belief, and trust in splitting your sea. 5, 4, 3, 2. Deep breath out. 1. Feel free to open up your eyes whenever and keep them closed as I bid you a special Shabbat Shalom. Many blessings from my heart and from the city of Tzfat and the land of Israel, and from Hashem's heart to yours. Shabbat Shalom.